One of the frustrating things as a new senator is to realize that no one is focused on common sense, practical solutions. As we just heard from the leader and Senator Lanza, there's a spending problem in New York. There is a mispriority of spending, and that leads to so many other issues. But I do believe that cashless bail that was coined as bail reform was the beginning of our downward spiral that we are currently in. If we don't have public safety, if we don't support our police, everything falls apart. People don't go out. They don't go to the city because they're more afraid of being pushed in front of a train than anything else, and it's not worth that risk. My children didn't go to see the Christmas tree in Manhattan this year because we were justifiably afraid for our safety to be in Manhattan. If our public safety isn't there, if we don't feel safe in our communities, nothing else works. We don't go to restaurants, we don't spend our money. And what has happened is the governor's solution of a task force for security in our retail system is not focusing on the underlying problem. The underlying problem is that we've emboldened criminals. There's no consequences for anything that they do. They walk into a store, they can take anything they want, and no one stops them. And who pays for that? Hardworking New Yorkers, because the retail stores then increase their prices, then have to pay for extra security. So instead of focusing on the underlying problem of setting bail and giving judicial discretion back to our judges to hold people who are the repeat offenders, we are instead putting a Band-Aid on it and say, let's look at security. My first bill that I proposed was giving judicial discretion back to the judges to say, when we have a repeat offender in front of us, we can put them in jail. But that is not supported by the other side of the aisle. That is a common sense thing that everyone else seems to see, except the governor and my colleagues across the aisle. What happens then is public safety suffers, everything else goes up. Now what happens to New Yorkers? I'm a mom of 4. My kids can't afford to stay here. It's not because of a lack of housing as been proposed, it's because they can't afford it. Their paycheck will only go so far. They have to pay for increased groceries, increased clothing, increased utilities, increased gas prices. There's nothing left at the end for young adults to put in the bank to save for that down payment. That's why we don't have people staying in New York. They're leaving New York because they can't afford to stay here. It has nothing to do with the lack of housing. So what do? The New Hope is our conference. Our conference has practical solutions that will give hope to every New Yorker if they listen to what we are proposing. One of the things that has been rampant is the increase of anti-Semitism. And yes, Senator Jack Martins, started a task force a year ago with 5 senators to say we need to address anti-Semitism. I had the privilege and the honor of going to Israel in September, 1 month before the horrific attack. And I too met people that I know are out fighting in the IDF, that their lives have been turned upside down. And we had the vision to know that anti-Semitism was a problem. Since those attacks, it has gone through the roof. We have university professors and colleges and leaders in our universities who don't see that breeding hate and not stopping it is a problem. Don't we have an obligation to protect our Jewish brothers and sisters the same as any other minority group is being persecuted? We do. And this conference stands with Israel for good reason. Because those people, the Jewish brothers and sisters, deserve our protection, our support. They deserve to be New Yorkers who go out in the public and feel safe. Those children with yarmulkes that don't feel safe in their own communities, that has to stop. That cannot continue. We wouldn't tolerate it if it was any other group in New York. So we need to do better. And this conference has proposed legislation to address that. We are going to, if the legislation passes, it will take SUNY schools and cut off their funding if they do not cut out what is going on, if they don't address anti-Semitism in the way that it should be. It should not be tolerated. And people that are persecuting Jewish people must have consequences for their action. So I will say that our conference is the hope for the future of New York, and I hope that you will listen to it, because my constituents every day are approaching me and telling me how they too can't believe where New York is. They are troubled by the policies coming out of Albany. So I hope that this session, my colleagues across the aisle will listen to what our proposals are, because that's what good government should be. Listening to the other side, understanding their position, and maybe compromising and seeing that we have very valid points. I don't know that that will happen, but I still have to have hope for the future of New York.